Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today, and thanks for Wix Engineering for hosting me. So my name is Alon Kiriati, and today I'm going to talk about Chrome extensions. So just before we start, I'd like to know you guys better, so let's make a short poll. Raising hands. Who here uses Chrome? Anyone uses Safari? Firefox? Any Edge with Chromium? No. No brave people here. So as I see, most of you are using Chrome, which is great. But even if you don't use Chrome, you use other browsers, or you want to develop for other browsers, you'll be happy to know that most of the APIs are quite similar, and most of the architecture is also quite similar, except one browser. Any guesses which one? Almost IE, but yeah, it's already dead. But Safari. So Apple do their own thing in their own way. So Safari will be excluded today. So my story starts a few years ago. I get this mail with this title. Well, what a great extension. So I open the mail, and then I see a recommendation from a colleague. This is an extension to render your site with different browsers. Well, as a front-end engineer, I thought this can be a great extension, very helpful. Will make my work much faster. So I went and downloaded this extension. And then I stumbled upon another extension which lets me measure the distance between top 2 points. Well, I didn't think too much, great extension also. I went and downloaded this one. Another extension which lets me pick a color on the screen, and more extension, more and more and more and more and more and more extensions. At the time, I thought that every extension will make me a better developer. Every extension will make my work faster and more efficient. Every extension is just another tool in my toolkit. Well, until Hack Week came. So what is Hack Week? At Dropbox, we have twice a year an extended hackathon. It's a one-week hackathon where we can build literally everything, from product improvements, closing technical gaps, to improving the business, literally everything that we want. So at that Hack Week, I decided to build a Chrome extension that will help me arrange my tasks in a better way. The extension was a huge success. It had a retention number of a grand number of one user. Well, that user was me. But from every success, or shall I say success, there are lessons we can learn. So here's why I came today, to talk about the lesson I learned. So the first lesson from that Hack Week was how easy it is to build a Chrome extension. It only takes a few minutes, 5 minutes, to download an example from the internet and start playing with that. And so in that Hack Week, it took us between 1 hour to 2 hours to build all the functionality that we wanted. So we can spend the rest of the Hack Week adding more and more and more functionalities. Which leads me to the second lesson, how powerful these extensions can be. Every functionality we added, we were like shocked what you can do with extensions. We're adding one functionality, and then really, can extension do this? And then another functionality, and really, can extension do that? So this will be the goals for our talk today. The first thing that we're going to do is build an extension together, and then we're going to turn this extension into a malicious one. What we're not going to do is publish the code or distribute it in the Chrome Web Store. First, it's illegal, and second, the purpose of this talk is not to turn you into hackers that distribute malicious code, but to increase the awareness about extensions and stop thinking about them as like small tools or small additions to your browser. So when I worked on these slides, I thought to myself, well, what can be an example for an extension? I really like football, so maybe something that will bring me live scores around the world. I also like movies, so maybe rating from IMDb, but nobody really asked me. My girlfriend decided for me. And what she decided is we're going to build together something that will help her do shopping online. So she likes to buy things in Amazon, co.uk, and it's not an advert to Amazon, it's just a random site I picked. I don't get any commissions from them. So what she do is she go to Amazon co.uk, but all the prices are in pounds. Well, we're in Israel, we work with shekels. So she can go to another site and do all the transmissions, but she wants to do it inline. So let's see. So let's say she picks this cool lamp, and then you see the price in pounds. So you can pick the target price, which is shekels in our case. You can mark the price, and ta-da. Like magic, the price changes to our local currency. Or if you want to compare it with other sites, maybe US dollars, you can choose your target currency, mark the price, and it changes. Cool. Well, I thought this can be helpful not only for her, but also for me and maybe for other people. So let's build this together. But before we start, a small disclaimer. So the code you're going to see today is pretty shitty. Well, it doesn't have is656, let cons, promises, async await, anything from the last 5 or more years. So even if you haven't written JavaScript code in the last years, you'll be able to understand everything. Also, I'm not going to cover all the edge cases. I know developers can sometimes be very nitpicky and look for the bugs. So there are many bugs here and many edge cases that you'll see here. Just forget about it. Like, the purpose of this is to make the code simple as I can. So let's see. So what is an extension? An extension is just a zip file with one required file, which is the manifest.json. That's all. And I call it the glue. It's the configuration of the file, the start point of the extensions. So here you can see all the files you define here. You define your permissions, you define the icon, you define the title of the extension, and more things. For this talk, this will be enough. So extension also has some logic. So an extension, you can talk about it with 2 contexts. The first context is the core of the extension, which has 2 parts. The first part is the pop-up, which what you see when you click the extension. It has a pop-up HTML and can also load pop-up.js. And the second part is the background that you can define it to run always in the background or to only listen to events. So the background also communicates with the browser and with the extension. So for our case, we want to build, as you can see, just an HTML, as you know, like regular HTML, nothing special. So there's a title and the dropdown with all the currencies. We also load a JavaScript, and we want to sync the dropdown and the local storage. So once the JavaScript runs, we take the value from the local storage and put it in the dropdown. And when the dropdown changes, we take the value and put it again in the local storage. So that's for the pop-up. And for the background, we want the conversion function, right? When we have a from currency, to currency and an amount, we want to make the transmission. So we call an external API. It's like just, again, XML, HTTP request, nothing special with JavaScript. We call an external API, which brings us all the rates, just an exchange bunks. When we get the response, we do the mathematics, which is pretty simple, just do the transmission between the amounts. And when we get the response, we return it. So that's all for the core context. And for the other context, which for me seems more interesting, because this is where we can interact with the page itself. So once the page finishes render, you can call a JavaScript in the content.js. So for our case, we add an event listener for every mouse up. Then we get the user's selection. We parse out the amount and the currency. And this is just a string manipulation, the get amount and get currency. You can see it in my GitHub. It's pretty simple, nothing special here. And then once we have the amount and the currency, we want to call the conversion function that we saw before and inject the result back to the DOM. But there's a problem, right? These two are two contexts. So in one context, we have the event listener, and in the other context, we have the conversion function. So for that, Google built us this amazing mechanism of messaging. We can send message from the content to the pop-up.js and from the content to the background.js and vice versa. Cool, so let's use it. On the content.js, once we have the amount and the currency, we send a message. Since we send the message to our own extension, the first parameter will be null. The second parameter will be the message, which in our case is the type of the message, and amount and currency. It can be any JSON. The third parameter is the callback. In our case, the callback is take the result and put it inside the DOM. Replace the text with a new amount. Cool, this is what the sender and now the receiver in the background JS. So we listen to all messages. Once we identify the header, we can take the amount and the currency, bring the target currency from the local storage, call the conversion function with all these parameters, and call the callback, which is in our case injecting the result into the DOM. And that's all you need to know for this extension. That's all the code. So now let's see how it works in practice. So the first thing was syncing between the local storage and the pop-up that you see. So once you click the pop-up, we take the value. When we load the pop-up, we take the value from the local storage. And once we change the value, it's saved back to the local storage. And for the second part, actually do the replacement. So the reminder, the first thing that we do is we listen to event. When we have the amount, we send a message to the background. In the background, we take the target currency from the local storage, call an external API, bring all the rates, do all the math, and inject the result to the DOM. It's gonna be very short, so pay attention. So we mark the price, and all this happens in the background. Cool, so now let's see it from the beginning to the end, your demo, but let's make it more interesting. So I ask you to pay attention to all the small details, because after you see the demo, I'll ask you a question. So pay attention to the details. That's all. Have you seen anything weird happening here? Anyone noticed? Okay, maybe it's a little small. So now let's focus only on the URL bar on the top. As you see, there's a URL there. This is what I want to buy. And once I press enter, there's something that added there. It's a tag. Well, this tag wasn't added by the site, neither by me. It was added by my extension. And the reason I want to add this tag is, so at the beginning I told you we're going to take an extension and turn it into a malicious one. Well, actually, this is already a malicious extension. It has a lot of malicious functionalities that we're going to see, but one of them is the added tag. So I'm adding this tag because I can use the affiliate program that Amazon has. Also, if you know, there's a refer program where you can take, where you try to take a link, you get a unique identifier from the site, and you can get a portion of money from every time a user buys something. So I can use my extension to add this tag and actually get a small portion of money for everything you're buying. Also, this is not limited to Amazon. I can do it in eBay, I don't know, whatever site. Most of the sites have this affiliate program, so you can make a lot of money from your purchases. So let's see the code now. So the code looks like this, it's pretty short. So I'm writing the event of where request, on before request that you do. I'm taking the URL. It only works on Amazon. So I'm taking the URL, I'm adding the tag with my unique identifier, and I'm redirecting the user to this site with a tag. And if this is not malicious enough, of course, I can redirect the user maybe to my site and make more money, or even redirecting them to a phishing site and steal their credentials, and then do whatever I want with their account. Well, this is not scary enough, so let's make another example. So as you've seen before, we can listen to events, and we can also call an external API. So why not making a keylogger, right? We can listen to events like key press, so every time the user press some key, we can take the key and then send it to the background, and from the background we store it in a malicious server, remote server, which in my case I built on Firebase, as you can see here. So let's see how it works in practice. So on the left side, this is the user's browser, and on the right side, you can see my Firebase account. So once the user uses the extension, everything works as usual. They can't suspect anything. So they mark the price, and it changes. But when they switch to their bank account, put in their username and password, as you can see, all the keylogs are sent to the server with this great password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, really best password ever, whenever you can use it. Cool, so another example. Apparently, extensions can also capture a screen from a tab. So for this example, I decided to go with the event of onActivated tab. So every time a user changes a tab, I can write on this event. So when they change a tab, I capture the visible tab, and I send a picture also to my Firebase account, as you can see here. So let's see how it works. So on this example, on the left side, again, you see the user's browser. If you can see in the browser on the right top, you don't see the extension anymore, because maybe the user decided to hide it, they're not using it anymore or anything, but it's still always run in the background. On the right top side, you can see my Firebase account, and on the right bottom, you can see a small gallery I built on top of my Firebase account. So the user uses it, maybe they forget to use the extension, but when they change tabs, going to their annual report with all the confidential data, as you can see, a picture is sent to the server. Also for all the users for the database, their private code from GitHub, their currency wallet, for example, and the worst thing you can think about, your embarrassing pictures from Facebook. So yeah, there are some pictures you don't want to send and store some random server. Yeah, so be careful. Well, luckily, or not, extensions don't try to steal your photos all the time. They have more interesting things to do, like making money. So the most popular thing that they've done is, first of all, AdWords, injecting advertisement to your browsers, also collecting and selling your data to third-party companies, stealing your credentials and hacking into your accounts, doing whatever they want, I don't know, likes in Facebook or whatever. And crypto, for some reason, extension like Monero, I don't know exactly why. So what they do is they can either mine on the background.js, mine Monero or any other crypto, or try to hijack transactions as money in the middle. Cool. So let's do the question at the end. Okay, thank you. So Grammarly, okay. If you use Grammarly, don't freak out. It's not a malicious extension. You can calm down. If you don't know what Grammarly is, so it's a great extension, a very popular one. You've probably seen advertisements on Facebook or all around. So it helps you enhance your English. It recommends you it finds your typos or your mistake, also thesaurus for better wording, and also making your writing simpler. But, and there's always a but, if you work at Microsoft in the last year, this is a message you'll get if you try to download Grammarly. If you can't see it, your admin decided to block this extension for you. And why that? Well, we need to drill down to their terms of service, because Grammarly actually collects your information. All the text, documents, other contact information uploaded to your browser is sent to Grammarly. And also, they cannot guarantee to be 100%, so it's all at your own risk. And so as you understand, like when you type something, even if it's confidential data, especially if you work for an organization or at work, sometimes you don't want everything to send to a remote server and maybe stored there. You should sometimes ask yourself questions like, do I trust this company? Either they have all the compliance, GDPR, do they have all the tools to protect their data, or actually your data? I'm not saying you shouldn't use Grammarly or other extensions, but you should be aware of what they do. Cool. So let's say you download an extension, you looked into users, there are tons of users, great reviews, many stars, you even read all about it, and you even read the code, and it's all look legit. You're still not safe, because these extensions has the mechanism of auto-update, which you can block or you can narrow down. That means that every time the developer decided to push some code to the server, everything is immediately sent to all the users. So what extensions most of the time will do is start clean, with clean code, getting more good reviews, more and more users and more and more users and more and more users until, bam, they decide to publish the malicious code, which immediately sent to all the users. But sometimes working on a new extension and getting more users is too hard. They can also buy an extension. And as you imagine, like extensions are not always made by big companies. Sometimes it's just a person that spent an hour or two to build a cool extension. So even thousands of dollars isn't sometimes enough to buy these extensions. A good example is from an extension called Particle. So the developer of Particle, they had an extension with something around more than 30,000 users. One day they got an email from a company trying to buy their extension. They said they did a due diligence for that company, but apparently it didn't help. A few hours after they saw the extension, the users started to report about adwares, spywares, and anything. This extension has become a malicious one. And if they don't sell their extension, they're also exposed to something with more force, like trying to hijack extensions. A great example is from an extension called Web Developer. It had more than 1 million users at 2017. And on August 2nd, 2017 in the morning, the developer of the extension got an email from Google telling him that they need to refresh the policies. So they went and logged in to their account and refreshing all the policies. To only a few hours later, they get mails from users again. Well, we're seeing weird things happening. We're getting adverbs. You see spywares all around. So the developer of this extension, they went and they tried to see what's happening. And as you can imagine, this was just a classic phishing attack. The mail wasn't from Google. It was from another site, and somebody stole this extension. So the developer of this site decided they fixed the issue, and they did a small retrospective, or you can call it postmortem. So they pointed out 3 things. One, they were pretty busy that morning, which is not an excuse. They were used to get these refresh mails, and they were used to be logged out from Google. And the third thing, they were idiots. And this is not me saying, this is their words. Another thing they said that could improve their security is using multi-factor authentication, using your phone as another means of authentication and getting an SMS, or using an authentication app. And I'll talk more about it later. Well, that's for the bad news, but there are some good news. So Google provides us with tools that can protect us. One of these tools is the permissions. But the permissions are not always so helpful, and I'll explain why. So this is how I would design the permission once you try to download an extension. As you can see, many warning icons and all things extensions can do, like stealing your credentials, steal photos, and all the things with pirate flags, red colors all around. But Google decided to use something more gentle. When you download an extension, it looks like this. Yeah. You're going to add this extension. It can read and change all the data all around your browser. And maybe even you didn't notice that you're actually giving it the permission to extension to do everything they want. But this is what it says. And so Google also admitted that there's a problem here, because this doesn't give the incentive to developers to narrow down the permissions. So from a research that's done a few years ago, from the top 1,000 extensions, more than 80% of the extensions use the wider permission that they can. Actually work on all the URLs and asking for all the permission that they can. But why you don't see malicious extension every day? Well, thanks to the Chrome Web Store audit. So it composes from 3 parts. The first one is automatic review, which happens to all the extensions uploaded to Google. Also sometimes manual review and reports from user, which is why it's important to report an abuse if you see one. So with all this, Google achieved a great score of 96.5 success in identifying extensions in 2015. And they also decreased the number of extensions in 70%. And they never stop. They're always doing more and more and more improvements. Some rumors I found around the internet say that they also use machine learning. Actually, I couldn't find any evidence, but I really want to say machine learning. You know, it's cool. So I think by now I covered all the buzzwords. I talked about machine learning, crypto, serverless, Firebase, and all this is security. So yeah, I think I covered all the buzzwords, so we can continue. So as I said in the beginning, I'm not going to tell you how to pass this review or how to distribute your code. But as a secret, I'll tell you how extension did it in the past. So they use three mechanisms. One is remote code, where you can call an API and bring a code from a remote server. So Google can't do anything about it. You can read the code from a remote server. They also use dynamic code, like evil in JavaScript, when you can turn a string into a code, a running code, and also obfuscation, taking your code, turning it into something that a human can't read, but a machine can. So also last year they did many updates, starting from the end of 2018 and all through 2019. So the first thing is user controls, which is really cool actually. From Chrome 7T, if you have it, you can right-click an extension and limit the permissions by your own. So not only the developers can decide what permissions your extension is going to need to use, but also you can decide. You can limit the extension to work on a specific site or sites, or to never work in the background, for example. Another thing is narrowly scoped permissions. From last month, Google has published in their blog that they're going to block all the extensions that aren't using narrowly scoped permissions. Any extension that will use more permission that they need will be blocked. Also, they encourage all the extensions that use data, users' data, or content to publish a privacy policy. So as we talked before about obfuscation, so Google from the beginning of this year blocks every try for obfuscation. You can still use Manify or anything that will make your code more efficient, but not anything that will try to hide your code deliberately. Also, Google requires from the beginning of this year all the developers must have multi-factor authentication on their account. So it will block things that happen to web developer. And a huge change that is going to come is Manifest v3. I'm not going to talk about it because it's a huge topic. They're going to change the background to web workers, for example, and many more things. It's starting to roll out now, and probably going to be like the new way to build extensions. But no matter what Google will do, this will be an endless race of a mouse and a cat. The extensions, developers, malicious developers will try to find more and more hacks to distribute their evil code. And Google will find more ways to block them. So it's never going to end probably in the near forecasting years. So what you can do? The responsibility moves towards you. Instead of thinking about extensions as the small tools that add more functionalities to your browser, think about them as programs. And instead of thinking about adding them, think about installing them. And once you stop thinking about adding extensions and installing programs, everything you know from the world of software is also relevant to here. Only install extensions if you absolutely need them. Also, before installing something, check publisher, reviews, users, posts from the internet, Reddit, and everything, stars, for example. Also, uninstall anything you don't need, obviously, and turn off extensions if you temporarily don't use them. You can also use the user controls that we see a few slides before to limit the extensions or to not work in the background. And another trick I'm using is separate user profiles. So at Chrome, you can have multiple profiles. So for example, you can use one for work, one for personal, one for tests. For example, at your work, you don't load any extensions. At your personal, maybe you can load Grammarly. And in the test account where you try to test a thing, you can load all the extensions, but never load any content there, any confidential content. Also, probably most of or all of you are developers, so you can read the code and also report abuses if you see ones. So, well, that's all. So, what's next? Go and build your Chrome extension. I hope I provided enough info to do that. Just a zip file, a manifest, and HTML, CSS, JavaScript, regular files, nothing special. Also, RETHINK extensions, programs that can read and change all your website and visits. Think twice before you install them. Also take a few minutes, probably not now, but after this talk, to check what you have in your extensions. Remove the ones you don't need, limit the ones you can. Most important things, be good, don't be evil, as Google say. Play with malicious code locally, but don't publish it. If you're not sure what's legit and what not, you have it all in the policies. Cool. So this was just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more topics you can see. Mitigation, for example, how Google finds the malicious extensions out of all the extensions, all the permission model, which is pretty awesome. Also, you can read more about the manifest v3 that is going to come. I can publish this PDF or give it to you after this talk. Cool, that was me. So Alon3030@Gmail, Kiriati at LinkedIn. All the code that you saw here today is at Kiriati@GitHub, and I sometimes publish at Free Code Camp, so you can find my handle Alon, or you can just download my extension and it will follow for you for all these social media. Not really, not that bad. Cool, that's all, thank you very much.